All right, welcome back. We were expecting the resumption of reinstalled or reinstated Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan to the House yesterday, but she couldn't make it. She said based on legal issues. You know, the court said apologize in two dailies, you know, boldly written there, and also on Facebook. You know, I'm sure that's what is restraining her. You know, but she couldn't resume yesterday. But there's something I said when this judgment came out. I said we are used to these days not respecting court orders and constitution. I should have expected that the House should have kept quiet and not say anything and allow her to resume. But most of the time, they're always challenging the law, the judiciary these days, especially when they give a statement. I wonder where that is coming from. Flagrant disrespect for court orders and the rule of law.
Well, I don't think this one has risen to the point of disrespect for
court.
Generally, okay.
Yes, yes.
In this case, if you listen to Senator Natasha, you know, she said, you know, basically two things. You know, from the legal advice she got, she should hold on until the CTC is received by the National Assembly. Even herself hasn't received the CTC. You know, the judgment was read in part, not in whole. So something the judgment is read in part, not in whole. You don't know what is the balance in the remaining part. Okay, even though you know the substance of the judgment. You understand? So that is a legal procedure that has to be observed. She said on two things: legal advice on procedures of doing things, and that procedure on doing things is wide enough. It could also include her own apology that she needs to put forward and to be sure it has been properly done. Do you understand? So when the National Assembly says they are waiting for the CTC, we can't call that disrespect for rule of law, because that CTC needs to be personally served to the clerk.
No. It was not based on that.
I get it, but I'm just saying it. So need to be personally served to the clerk so that they can implement it. Well, we don't even expect them to appeal, but mind you, any judgment is also open to.
That's what I'm saying. We agree that they can appeal.
Yeah, but there's actually no benefit,
because he said they were going to appeal.
But that's what we're saying. Yes. We know it is open to appeal any judgment that is not from Supreme Court or the highest court on that particular matter. Yes. It's open to appeal, but in this case, what will be the benefit to appeal? Particularly when the senator representing Kogi Central, Senator Zikaka Lawa or something, Lawa, has presented a bill where they have to amend this their standing powers and their privilege act to kind of elaborate the way they deal with themselves. So in that amendment, they have opportunity to accommodate, you know, what and the best way they think this thing should be done. Any areas they think is giving any member opportunity to approach the court or things like that, and not allow things to remain within. They have opportunity to respond to that.
Now, of course, you already heard what Okafor said on these issues, you know. But I said that if you give me the opportunity to look at most of the time the rule of law. I'm not saying they are disrespecting the right now, disobeying it, but these days, most people don't listen to the rule of law. Not just only the National Assembly. Most of the time, there are judgments and agencies, bodies who won't follow it. Of course, like I said, we are not saying they are not following this one. Akpoti-Uduaghan has told us why she's not resuming the CTC judgment, and every other legal things need to be sorted out. But why this flagrant disrespect for rule of law in recent times?
You know, when you throw up this kind of issue, you don't make it vague. If you say, why are they not respecting rule of law or court order these days, which particular one are you talking about? We can't discuss in emptiness. It has to be narrowed down to a particular, judgment and a particular agency that had disobeyed rule of law or court judgment. No one in particular in this instance. So we can't delve into it. Coming to the issue of Natasha, you see, we have said time without number that two wrong can never make a right. It would have been most inappropriate for Senator Natasha to resume herself at the Senate floor yesterday. From what we heard, because he said, I will resume on Tuesday, there were enough preparation to resist a resumption, as talking about security arrangement and whatever that was propped up at the National Assembly. If you go to the National Assembly yesterday, the security network, the security personnel, the numbers were increased. Those are going towards anarchy.
Yeah.
I'm glad that she took the advice her legal team had given to her as regarding this judgment of the court. That look, you will have to do X, Y, Z, and there are procedures. You see, this is court of instance for crying out loud. You can't say the people do not have right to go to to appeal, because in the first instance you went to court against them, and they feel they were right, and as it were, it appears the court has said that you are not right after all. They still feel they are right. So if they want to proceed to exercise that right, it's allowed. But I think Natasha is also exploring other options. I think he may have listened to a wise advice. That is why he do not impose herself on the Senate. Yes. That to say that, he had decided to stay back for legal advice and procedure. I think this will give room for the meeting of the mind where they can resolve their issue. Now that the court has said to resolve it to a particular point, what is left is for the individual to say, let's not proceed anymore. We have fought enough. Let's sit down and resolve. Okay, yes, you do your apology. I will get the CTC, let the procedure be followed, and then you can resume. I think it is right. And we shouldn't just, conclude hastily that the agencies and the institution are not law-abiding in respect of this matter.
Okay, so let me bring out one of them. The local government autonomy.
Yeah.
Is it disrespect for the rule of law? And nobody has done it. Just that one. Nobody has done anything about it.
The judgment they got, eventually, that is the opportunity they have to actually implement it. When you have those implementing the laws, trying to play politics by it, they make it a murky water. And when you have those who should be challenging that, now jumping ship and declaring their own ship that is damaged beyond repair, who is going to fight it? Who is going to make it clearer for the people? This is where the people should rise up themselves. So certainly there are many instances where we think the people enforcing the law should have done better. But in this case in particular, in this case of Natasha, Senator Natasha, I think that for the benefit of democracy and this is not the first time this is happening. This is not the first time this is happening.
But let me bring something also to you. Because I want us to, we educate the people and also tell the government when they are not doing well. Now look at one instance. When we fight, we don't actually fight for individuals. Yes. We fight for
that's where I'm coming. This judgment, if you look into the judgment of Nyako, it's clearly, it's touched the fundamental precepts of justice. For every action, you find reaction. And as a matter of fact, for every inaction, there is also a reaction, because that makes inaction to be an action. If I say plus 10 is not too different from minus 10. Minus 10 is just facing another direction. And when you have a reaction that is much more than the action, you have a residue, and that residue now forms another action. And that is why proportionality is required in justice. And that is what the judge cited, that their reaction was more excessive. And if you look at, let me read a few instances where this is not the first time. You see the case of Senator Ali Ndume versus the Senate President, 2018. It's not the first time. The Court of Appeal ruled that 6-month suspension of Senator Ali Ndume was illegal and unconstitutional. The court held that prolonged suspensions undermine the democratic rights of the electorate and violate due process. Dino Bilayo versus House of Representatives, 2018 too. The Federal High Court reaffirmed that legislative suspensions must be reasonable, fair, and time-bound, not arbitrary punishment for political reasons. Honorable Adumumuni Jubrin versus House of Representatives, 2017. The Federal High Court struck down the 180-day suspension of Honorable Jubrin, ruling that it exceeded the reasonable limit for disciplinary actions and violated his constituents' rights to representation. These things are precedents.
So why
that
do we
are
still
coming.
have them?
That's where I'm going. These things are there, and the National Assembly will not look at these things before melting out any discipline to anyone. I'm not saying you should be allocated a seat and you become the Senate president to choose the seat to sit. Do you understand? They understand that if you go to powers and the privilege act of the Senate themselves, section 14, subsection 2, it talks about anybody being punished within a reasonable time to be determined by the legislative house if there is any content of legislative house. Yes. So you can't just behave arbitrarily, agreed. But when we have these already determined cases and the direction they went, why do we go the same route? Getting somebody suspended above the limit that is reasonable, and now coming back to say, oh, you went to court in the first instance, then when you come back we can appeal. You are robbing democracy. We shouldn't go that way.
Now, I know you have something to say, but let me also put it to you. People that make the law don't like the law being disrespected. If at the time they that make the law and pass it to the executive or whatever judiciary to pass it into law, if they are now perpetual disrespecting the law, it makes the law it makes it look like a society that is not organized and that anybody can take something into their hands. I think this one thing they should be called to question. From what he has read just now, it has been something of a sequence that has happened and that the law has ruled on. Why don't they look back?
You see, that's what I've said on this platform, that we need to ask ourselves, do we understand what democracy is? Extending that question, we need to ask the Senate and the senators if they understand their role as Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Do they realize that they are the lawmakers? That the law that governs this country is being made by them? And do they realize that the laws are to be obeyed? These are questions we need to ask our senators and Senate and the Senate as a whole. Because the truth remains that it appears that those that even saddle with responsibility of making law don't even understand their responsibility. They don't even understand what law stands for. Because first thing first, the law is the Bible that governs the society. It needs to be obeyed. When those who are making the law are breaking the law, how do you just suppose that they are the lawmakers? Like the question you said, you make reference to the local government autonomy judgment. You don't forget, it was the federal government that actually went to court and procured the judgment to say that for you to assess local government fund, there must be elected local government government. The same federal government had blatantly disobeyed that law. Rivers State as a case of instance and many other instance cases. So the question is, again, the question we continue to ask ourselves and this nation, do we understand what democracy is? If we understand, why are we like this?
The law has now become something like, within the law or governance or position of authority has now become something that people use to carry out personal vendetta.
Yes, you see, let's be very clear here. They said it's only God that gives you what you didn't ask for, that the judges don't do that. But sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. That's the truth. Because they come to punish you sometimes, After all, Natasha was billed 5 million naira as part of punishment. Nobody asked for that. No. So the judge has become God in that matter. The truth is, I think why the judgment was very, very fair, very fair. She was too lenient with the National Assembly. You have all these cases. No matter what caused them, all of them culminated into suspensions beyond limit. You have all these decided cases. The judge should assume the position of the judges that rendered this judgment, because it's the same judiciary. You have all this. You are still going ahead to do this kind of thing. There should be charges against the people that got this personally. Because do you know why they continue to do this? I gave this example the other day. A police officer can abuse right. You now take the police to court. When you win, the police institution be the one to pay you damage
with tax money,
which is also our own money, your own fractionally being included, without that officer personally suffering for it. If that officer is to personally pay for it in some form, This abuse
You
of
will take
power
caution
is
in
power
doing what
is
you want.
power abuse. Let's not try to paint it. It's a power abuse because there are decided cases.
So you could follow precedents.
It's not an unknown territory. Why do that? Why do that? The judge should have punished them in some form. Whether they end up obeying it or not, let's have it in papers.
That at one time.
That one time it happened.
Parting words.
Well, I will say this again, that Nigeria is a project in progress. Nigerian democracy is a project in progress. We hope that we'll have that one good head one day that will lead us out of this wilderness. Because truly, we're a wilderness. This is a banana republic. The laws are not respected. They are not obeyed. Those who are even making the law do not even understand what they are doing. So we are hoping that one day
Things will shape.
this will shape up with the man with the good head that will lead us out of this wilderness.
That's your mantra. Okay, and at this table, we try to deal with institutions and laws and not personalities. But these personalities are the ones that operate these laws. So at one form or the other, we will call out these personalities.
We have to leave the veil.
We have to lift the veil. But basically, what we do is to make sure the institutions are well built so that as you get yourself filtered into the institution, you act according to the institution structures. And that's what we do at Landslide Podcast. We'll soon be right back.